What was read to you in the last rak'ah, or the I guess you would say the third rak'ah, was 4 rak'ahs, right? In the third rak'ah, I just came, mashallah, and just told me, mashallah, come and give a lecture. I said, bismillah, let's go. Was actually one of my favorite verses in the Quran, but I want to give a background story to this. How many of you familiar with Ghana, West Africa? I just gave it away, actually. Ghana, raise your hand. Mashallah, mashallah, mashallah. Ghana was called the Gold Coast. And it was called the Gold Coast because one of the natural resources, gold, was and is still there. And that was the name that was given by the British, you know, those that came and got some free labor from those in Ghana and on the West Coast in general, West Coast of Africa. I'm originally from Ghana. I came here, my parents came here to Dallas, Texas, Arlington, Texas, and I was born in Arlington, raised in Houston, back in Dallas. I mentioned earlier that there is a similarity between North Carolina and Ghana. One similarity. That similarity is isti'badun. That there are slave quarters here in North Carolina, just as there were slave quarters, our slave quarters in Ghana. And it is used as a tourist site. I personally, I can't find it in myself to go there yet. And there was one individual that I knew when I embraced Islam in 1997. His name was Kwajo. And he embraced Islam. His name was Khalid. And when he went there after embracing Islam, to make a long story short, it messed him up. Because when he went there, he saw a history, the dehumanization of people, the oppression of people, the oppression of the human life, which is one of the maqasid of the Sharia, hifdhun nasl, wa hifdhun nafs, preservation of life. And anything that violates that unjustly is un-Islamic. And that is what took place during the transatlantic slave trade. And Ghana took part in that. The British coming and taking them unjustly. And we see that on the coast of Senegal as well. There are slave quarters that exist till this day in remembrance of that. And what I want to say now, particularly in this last verse in the chapter of Al-Ma'idah, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was talking about Isa, the hiwar between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Isa. And I had the honor and the blessing and the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to read this to a Latin American non-Muslim, translated into Spanish, and they embraced Islam. When looking at the story of Isa alayhi salam, subhanallah, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked him the question, not out of jahl, not out of ignorance. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked, أَأَنْتَ قُلْتَ لِلنَّاسِ اتَّخِذُونِي وَأُمِّيَ إِلَهَيْنِ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ. When Allah asked Isa, did you tell the people, take me and my mothers as two gods besides Allah? Qala subhanak. And this is important. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala relates the statement of Isa and his answer. This is important. When we say subhanallah, everyone say subhanallah. Subhanallah literally means a tanzih. It is as though you are separating the greatness and status of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from everything other than Allah. Allah is al-Khaliq, and everything other than him is makhluq. Allah is the creator, and everything other than him is created. When one understands this reality and uses this understanding and methodology with every other name and attribute of Allah, this is when they understand the Islamic concept of God in Islam. And make no mistake that when people hear about Allah in this way, this is an easy way to tell them about Allah, and one of the strongest methods of calling people to Islam, because it hits the fitrah. When they hear that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is al-Khaliq al-Raziq al-Mudabbir, he is the one that provides, he is the one that created, and he is the one that has control over all things. And everyone else is being provided for. They have no ultimate authority, no independent agency over themselves. If someone has to, akramakumullah, go and relieve themselves, they can't control that. We can't control when we die. Allah is al-Khaliq. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Kullu nafsin dha'iqatul maut. Every soul shall taste death. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have mercy on our brothers and sisters that have passed away in Gaza. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep their hearts firm upon Iman. Upon Iman. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the statement of Isa, subhanak, his answer shows monotheism. There's no way I would ever say that I am God and my mother is God. Subhanak, I am far from that type of statement. Look at the adab of Isa. The adab, the manners of Isa. When Isa responds like this, what was the first thing that Isa said in the chapter of Maryam when he was born? The first thing that he said was what? Inni abdullahi atani al-kitaba wa ja'alani nabiyya. Verily, I am a servant, slave of Allah. I am not a slave of the human being. As Rabi'ah ibn Amr said, "Ukhrijna min ibadat al-ibad ila ibadati Rabb al-ibad." When he went to profess the religion of Islam, he said that verily we were taken away. We left from worshiping, being slaves of slaves, to being slave of the creator of the slaves. So when Isa says, Subhanak, it is not for me to say which I don't have no knowledge. It is not for me to say what I don't have no knowledge. If I was to say it, لَقَدْ عَلِمْتَ فَقَدْ عَلِمْتَ, then verily you know. تَعْلَمُ مَا فِي نَفْسِي وَلَا أَعْلَمُ مَا فِي نَفْسِكَ. You know what is inside of me, and I do not know what you possess. Why? إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ عَلَّامُ الْغُيُوبِ. And this is very beautiful in the Quran. Numerous verses. One practice that I want all of you to embark upon, inshallah, is anytime you read a verse in the Quran and it ends with names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, look at the contextualization of the verse. Look at the context of the verse. أَنْتَ عَلَّامُ الْغُيُوبِ. You have the knowledge of the unseen. What is the context here? That Allah is well aware of what Isa was saying. He knew what was in his heart. He knows what your hearts conceal and reveal. He is Al-Alim. He is Al-Alim. He knows what was, what is, what will be. And some would say the hypotheticals. يَعْلَمُ مَا كَانَ وَمَا يَكُونُ وَمَا سَوْفَ يَكُونُ لَوْ كَانَ كَيْفَ يَكُونُ. He knows all of it. His knowledge is comprehensive. لَا يَخْفَى عَلَيْهِ شَيْءٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَا فِي السَّمَاءِ. There is nothing that is hidden from the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when Isa alayhi salam is making this statement, it is showing the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it is a direct rebuttal against a tathlith. It is a direct rebuttal against those that say that Allah is one of three. لَقَدْ كَفَرَ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ ثَالِثُ ثَلَاثَةٍ. Those that disbelieve, that say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the third of three. He is not like his creation. لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. There is nothing like him. When reading this verse to this non-Muslim that was Latin American, and was Catholic, mashallah, strong family structure, and they believe in Mary. They love Mary, and some of them, they make her a god, along with Isa alayhi salam, along with Jesus. But when we look at the religion of Islam, we say, Alhamdulillah ala Islam, ala ni'mat al-Islam. Alhamdulillah ala ni'mat al-Islam. Because with the connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the first thing is knowing who he is, what he says about himself, and what he says he is not. That is knowledge of the religion. That is what is important for us to come closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And particularly in this situation now, when looking at the knowledge of Allah, we have to couple it with hikmah, with wisdom. And I will end here. Al-ilm wal-hikmah. Allah is Al-Hakim. He is the all-knowledgeable and he is the all-wise. Allah appropriates his knowledge. That is wisdom. Why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I'll never forget, when I became a Muslim, I walked into my dad's room and he had a stroke. So I had to take care of him when I was, just became a Muslim. He called me, and this is during the Iraqi war. My name was Abdul before I became a Muslim. SubhanAllah, they give us Muslim names. My name was Abdul. He said, Abdul, come to the room. As West Africans, we love cold water, right? So he says, bring me some cold water. I bring him some cold water. He says, why are you Muslims? You Muslims. He kicked me out the house when I embraced Islam, but I was able to come back in. He said, why are you Muslims all around the world being held by your neck like this? You're held by your neck. Why are you coming to a religion that's so weak? This is what he asked me. At that moment, I had a choice to make internally. Do I trust in the wisdom of Allah that he is allowing this to happen? What's happening in Gaza? What's happening in Sudan? What's happening in China? What's happening in Kashmir? I know that there is a divine wisdom. I don't ask what he is doing. لا يسأل عما يفعل وهم يسألون. I don't ask Allah about what he's doing. I need to take a step back and look at history and see what Allah has done throughout history. There was Badr and there was Uhud. Did the Muslims win both of them? We could say no, but ultimately, spiritually, they did. That's the most important thing. They tuned in with their hearts. Even though there was a loss apparent, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came after what? Fath Mecca. Inna fatahna laka fathan mubina. The fathan mubina, the conquest, some scholars say it was actually the sulh, the treaty of Hudaybiyah. In any case, when looking at that, and my father told me that, I had to trust in the predestination of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I had to trust in the knowledge of Allah and know that it is much more comprehensive than my knowledge. And that is the tawakkul. Many of us here, even born Muslim, still need to embrace Islam, especially our youth. When we look at someone that came into Islam, what about the youth that was confused? And now they're asking, why would God allow this to happen? It's important to look at what have we put forth as we see what the prophets have put forth. To where when we have bad thoughts about Allah, we say, A'udhu Billah, Subhanallah. And I'll end it with one beautiful statement of the Salaf that they used to say about the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They say, Al-kha'idu fil qadri kan-nadhri fi shams. They say the one that looks too deep into the predestination of Allah. Why did Allah do this? It is like the one that looks at the sun. It is apparent, it is abstract, but it can still affect you. It is apparent, it's in front of you. We see that things happen yesterday, today, tomorrow. It is abstract. We totally don't understand and totally understand why. And we know that it affects us, but how will you allow it to affect you? So it's important that when we're here, brothers and sisters, praying Taraweeh, some of us may not understand what's being recited. It's okay. Allah loves your efforts. Allah loves the fact that you are voluntarily being a slave of His, just as Isa was. And Allah loves that when you say, Subhanallah, you make Him greater than any and everything in your life. And that is the correct servitude. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us His slaves, sidran wa alaniya, in secret and in open. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shower His mercy upon all of us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this a shahada for us and not upon us, Ya Rabbil Alameen. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect and forgive our brothers and sisters that are suffering around the world, particularly in Gaza, Ya Rabbil Alameen. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه الأبرار. جزاكم الله خير. السلام عليكم.